This video presents content from Chapter 10 of the book Sustainable Living and World Peace from a section entitled, We Have Yet to Experience the Freedom that Virtue and the Liberation of the Mind Will Bring. The Founding Fathers of the United States were undeniably great and highly intelligent people, and we owe them so much. Virtue was very important to them, and they cared deeply to do what they understood was the virtuously best thing at their time. They provided us with the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, and their words of the importance of virtue. They modeled for us the significance of hard work and sacrificing for things that are important. They said all people are created equal and endowed with unalienable rights of liberty, life, and the pursuit of happiness. Pride in our Founding Fathers is good, and we should never forget their greatness. However, we should not let our pride turn into arrogance, which can cloud our eyes from seeing ignorance when we are experiencing or witnessing it. We are all capable of thinking and acting ignorantly, and even our great Founding Fathers were not infallible to this. Earlier in the book, it was mentioned that people can have a difficult time realizing basic truths that should be self-evident to us, and that realization and actualization of these truths can originate after we have suffered through times of hardship resulting from the denial of these truths. We need to understand the situation the Founding Fathers went through that helped develop and generate their understanding. They were being burdened by a government that was unnecessarily controlling in the people's affairs and who sought an infringing degree of involvement in the people's religious practices. The Founding Fathers realized that human liberty was of divine origin and intent, and they themselves suffered in a time when basic human liberties were being denied them. They found themselves being assembled in a more diverse population that included people of many different faiths living together. They wanted freedom for themselves to choose to live and worship as they so determined, and they recognized the sacredness of human liberty. Valuing individualism and the opportunity for self-determination by individuals helped them realize the solution to the problems they faced. They wanted freedom, and so they acknowledged freedom as a basic human right. They wanted freedom, so they gave freedom to others, and they were able to receive it back from other people of virtue. Just like the Founding Fathers were, people today who love and benefit from acknowledged human liberty should themselves be guardians of others' liberty. We need to be guardians of other people's liberty, even those whose freedom of conscience, actions, and expressions seem inconsistent to our own. Realize that all people's actions and expressions are respectfully secured by their liberty as long as their actions and expressions are done peacefully and do not interfere with other people's freedoms. We should never get the feeling that respecting others' freedom to choose in any way threatens or takes away from our liberty to choose and exercise our free will. If you enjoy the freedoms you have today, it is because others acknowledged it in the past and continue to do so in the present as being a natural and important part of being a human being. Just because another group or government appears not to be respecting others' freedom of choice, and free will, does not mean we need to do the same to them or to other people. It is up to us to keep liberty alive for the future, and it will stay alive to the level of our virtue. We then will be appropriate models to the world of the benefits of acknowledging human freedoms and how people hold on to their liberties. The Founding Fathers expressed and documented for us the intended way of human existence in freedom. They were aware of the natural endowment of human liberty, and they understood how humans, with all their apparent faults, can live life actualizing this gift together. They understood that bringing this natural and intended condition into fruition occurs through the expression of natural virtue, and they left for us to explore the reality of how virtue and freedom work hand in hand together, and hence the peace and prosperity they bring. The Founding Fathers were pioneers in a quest for a nation, and indeed the world, to advance the acknowledgement and realization of human liberty. The Founding Fathers spoke and wrote of freedom, but as we can see today, they were not aware of the extent of freedom that humans could achieve or what could be done with an ongoing expansion of liberties. They were willing to allow slavery to still exist in their brand of freedom. Only landowning white men were allowed to vote in most states in the early history of the United States in their concept of a free nation. The Founding Fathers' writings and speeches set a high bar that not even they at their time could completely live up to. The freedom they experienced in their free society was still limited because their society only allowed them to free their minds so much, and people of any time period can experience similar limitations. Fortunately for us, however, they did set an example for future generations to use their virtue to solve problems of their times as their understanding grows and their situations change. When the Founding Fathers were faced with a difficult world denying them basic human liberty, they faced it boldly and virtuously, when they could have faced it cowardly and selfishly. There are new problems confronting us today in the modern world, and it is now our turn to use virtue as taught and modeled by our Founding Fathers to solve our new problems. Today, our population size is increasing, technology increases all the more over time, and our ability to extract from the earth and potentially degrade and pollute the earth also increases. What was once difficult to exploit and was left alone can now be exploited. What was once undisturbed or unpolluted can now be affected directly by people or could potentially be reached by contaminated air and water. The world, metaphorically, gets smaller as our growing capabilities increase our chances to cause changes to the earth. As we advance in science, technology, and education, thus creating many more opportunities for ourselves, we must also advance in problem-solving abilities and sustainability-preserving virtue. While recognizing the importance virtue would play, the Founding Fathers found a way to unify through acknowledging the liberty of the diverse group of people of their time. Now and in the future, we must be able to recognize and witness the virtues within the diverse assemblage of people that make up the world. Starting from this base, we need to have faith that our virtue, common human virtue, will grow over time and ever more support liberty, promote peace, and advance prosperity sustainably forever. If we were to choose not to allow pal virtue to help us to solve the problems we are confronted with now and in the future, can you conceive of what the price is we will pay for our ignorant ways? What would be a just consequence for not being able to get along with our fellow human beings to the point of having a devastating modern or futuristic war? What would be an apt punishment if we were to mar the earth that has been entrusted to us, either due to catastrophic warfare or through unsustainable ways we interact with the environment? In a sense, we end up creating a portion of our own punishment by the way we live when we are not able to get along in peace with our fellow human beings, and when we continue on living unsustainably with the earth. A portion of an Eisenhower quote earlier in the book states, "Every gun that is made, every warship launched, every rocket fired signifies in a final sense a theft from those who hunger and are not fed, those who are cold and are not clothed. This world in arms is not spending money alone. It is spending the sweat of its laborers, the genius of its scientists, the hopes of its children." End quote. Our ignorance of not being able to live in peace with our fellow human beings has always resulted in a waste of resources and talents, and has diminished humanity's prospects for opportunity, growth, and prosperity. Truly, we live a life creating a portion of our own punishment when we move forward unable to find a way to live together in peace. In the extreme event of a ruinous war with modern or futuristic weapons, we would certainly understand the wrath brought about by our ignorance if we allow such a war to happen. Essentially, whether it is due to not being able to live in peace with each other or through living unsustainably with the earth, ignorance directs us to create a portion of our own punishment as time goes on. Just like how people of the past have suffered because of ignorance and the denial of basic truths, humanity now and in the future can expect to suffer due to the same causes. The people at the time of the founding of the United States did not necessarily originate the conditions, situations, or mental states that caused the negative aspects of their time. A prime example being, they did not invent the institution of slavery. It was an old world relic that died hard even in the face of advancing acknowledgement of human liberty. Similarly, we did not necessarily originate the conditions, situations, or mental states that caused the problems of today. For instance, we did not create how countries can go about hostilely interacting with each other or how we can wastefully use resources. Inertia of past events and preformed ideas can heavily shape how we go about interacting with each other, and how we use resources. The Founding Fathers, reflective understanding and virtue freed their minds to a certain extent of ignorance, but further breaking free was left for future generations. Our search to continue to break free of ignorance continues today, and our search really never ends. They left us an understanding of the importance of virtue, and they left that understanding in us and for us to explore. We need to see them for what they were at their time, and we need to see ourselves for what we are at our time. Then we need to further reflect and see ourselves for what we could be or need to be for all times. How virtuous can we be in a timeless sense or in a manner for all time? Our minds could allow us to live in complete peace with each other if we were to allow virtue and freedom to direct us on this path. We can also have perpetual sustainability, increasing value and chances for growth in an unlimited capacity without ignorance constraining our opportunities. Real freedom, the broadening of liberties, a world living in peace, and the realistic pursuit of unbounded prosperity have to originate from a source of individual virtue and the acceptance of personal responsibility. Our potential for complete peace, for growth, and for prosperity will continuously explored and expanded as we understand the freedoms that we can virtuously and responsibly accept into our lives. Our ability to grow sustainably, our chances to live in peace with each other, and the freedom we can experience indeed are a function of the virtues and responsibility we are willing to embody and accept. The Founding Fathers expected that we would live virtuous lives, which would protect and preserve freedom and the Republic. If they would not have expected that living this way was a natural, attainable quality, then they would not have gone to so much trouble to establish a republic in the first place. They believed in the goodness of humans and our ability to live virtuous lives. In a similar manner, we should have faith and expect that natural human virtues that facilitate respect and consideration of the needs of humanity and nature can lead us toward a completely sustainable world of peace, environmental integrity, and greater human well-being. It is not at all a stretch to think that people can do this. It is actually something we are meant to do. Striving for complete sustainability should not be viewed as a quest for a utopia, which can be viewed as a society that appears highly desirable and nearly perfect, but yet many people believe that attempts to create it would originate from the control of a central authority. Government regulations and laws are not how virtues will become culturally ingrained or how freedom and sustainability will be maintained. Only when virtues and virtuous living becomes established and entrenched at the level of the individual will there be an ensured preservation of freedom and endeavoring for sustainability. Hoping that government laws and regulations are in place to keep us on the right path is a false hope that does not ensure anything for creatures with our imaginations, need for growth, and spirit for integrity. Personal power virtue and the desire to do what is right are the only way.